Okay, awesome. So I'm the founder of Portkey AI. We started the company about a year back, and the idea was that if you go back to 2012, you all look young, so I'm not sure 2012 what you guys were doing. But 2012, I was part of this revolution, which was the cloud, and everybody was talking about the cloud, but cloud adoption was very low. But I think over the next 3 years, DevOps just took this place by storm. And that's why a lot of companies could go to production with their cloud products. And now it's still at 68% adoption, but it's grown significantly. I think with GenAI, I was building GenAI products for the last 4 years. We felt that deploying to production was a really big challenge for companies. And that's sort of where we picked saying, okay, maybe there's a DevOps category that needs to evolve that gives people the confidence to go to production. Okay, yeah. So that gives companies the confidence to go to production, and that's what Portkey is about. So we are a AI gateway and observability suite that helps companies just go to production a lot more confidently. So yeah, it's about.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Sandeep Devrapalli. I'm one of the founders at DataZip. Essentially, we are building a data tool that is preemptively scalable and helps data teams turn raw data into data marts without any engineering dependency. So our problem statement is the data engineering and infrastructure space, trying to make it more easier for people with much more business context. That is basically our analysts, data scientists, and of course business users, be able to contribute to the data context enrichment, etc. So that now this data and its own context is available for different applications. It can be your LLM applications as well. So that is what DataZip is, and happy to take any questions and explain more. Thank you.
Hey, I'd like to thank Satvik. I was not expecting to get 5 minutes of time to introduce Jarvis Labs. Thanks, Satvik, for helping us with the sales pitch or whatever you call it, which I'm really bad at. So I'll just take you guys 7, 8 years back when I was trying to get into the AI space. The biggest challenge was spending 90 cents an hour on K80, which is a GPU of probably the ancient times, on AWS, which they were selling for almost like 7, 8 years for close to $1, right? $1 for a guy who's making probably a lakh back then was definitely expensive, right? But even after spending the $1, you still have to wait a lot of time to set up CUDA and all those crazy environments, which was way more complicated back then, and bring it to your Jupyter Lab or VS Code and start your model training. This, for a hacker like me, took probably a few hours to a few days. Once I cracked it, it became much easier. What I observed is companies spent weeks of time doing this, and it's lost money. And the data scientists, instead of working on what they are really interested in, they used to go up and down with the DevOps guys to crack these things. The DevOps also were finding it difficult because it's not the traditional DevOps. There was this introduction of new technology, the how GPUs work, and some knowledge of this is required to solve this. There were a few people, few companies that were trying to solve this in the US, and no one in India. The guys who were trying to solve this also was trying to make it cheaper than AWS, but definitely not a lot cheaper than AWS, right? Because of the huge demand, they could not do it. So when I left my job 4 years back, I started this company called Jarvis Labs, where our aim was to start and help users start an instance in less than 15 seconds. So when we launched, we were one of the fastest in the world. And also start with a Jupyter Lab, which is the popular IDE back then, and I'm assuming it's still today. Get started with that in 15 seconds, and we achieved that. We have been working on it. We have been doing a lot of improvements. So if you're someone who's using AI, I would love you to come give a try. Platform. If you have, we are improving a lot. There's a lot going on in the AI space, and we do a heavy R&D. From what we learned, we have been consistently improving. If you have any questions, you can ask me probably during the panel discussion or post panel discussion. I'll not do any more sales. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Hey guys, I'm Ritika. I'm the founder and CEO of Unscript. So we are basically a platform that can help you build studio quality videos in just 2 minutes using AI without doing any form of shooting, scheduling, etc. So basically, we are automating the process of whole video creation, including ads, different marketing videos, product marketing videos, social media videos, YouTube videos, and lots of other things. I think probably this is not a new field, so everyone has used videos or at least seen videos, right, in our lives, and probably we do that every day, and they are super important for everyone's branding, especially when it comes to building companies. So we are basically helping people do this without doing any form of shooting, right, and automating the whole process. Thank you.
Yeah, now that you have a basic idea of what these companies do, so sticking to the theme that we have today, which is half yearly rewind, so we would want to get insights from every one of them as to what were the significant changes that they have seen in their domains. We have Rohit, who's working a lot with LLMs. We have Sandeep from, yeah, I remember the name. So we have from DataZip. We have Vishnu, who is looking after GPUs. We have Ritvika, who is looking in video generation space. So we'll try to get insights from them as to what were the major changes that they have seen over the last 6 months in terms of the models that they were using, accessibility, and some significant breakthroughs that they have seen. So anyone wants to volunteer first? Yeah.
I'll of course talk about in general what I've seen as the trends, but at the same time in my domain, right? So one thing has been there that last year somehow, like last year and last year, there has been a boom in generative AI, and many people have started using ChatGPT, through which even if you go to like your parents or people who have never heard about, let's say, AI, still know right now about AI. But last year, people used to sell majorly based on the wow factor that it used to build, and there are a lot of B2C, like consumer-based tools that really gained, like DALI, like Midjourney, like ChatGPT, that really got the attention and that help people really solve their day-to-day use cases, etc. But what we're seeing is that a lot of the generative AI tools that have been coming up do not really have real use, have not, like I wouldn't say do not really have real use cases. They haven't found the perfect use cases that they, all the application that they want to solve. So right now, if you go to, for example, we mostly sell to B2, like businesses. So if you go to a customer, they would not buy just because it's cool, right? People are looking for real use cases. So that's has been a major mindset shift. How people are building, what kind of companies are being built, just because of the way market has been accepting, right? And at the same time, to make meaningful adoption, you also need kind of models which are most cost efficient, because many of them are so large that they are not suitable for real world applications, a lot of the real world applications. So while models are also getting larger, GPUs are getting more optimized, and all those things are happening. But I think with the release of ChatGPT 4.40, right, and many other such developments in various fields in generative in general, I think there has been a major shift towards building more cost efficient and models which can be really used for applications which can solve meaningful purposes. I think these are the major two shifts I'm seeing. And in general, application based, there are many agentic models. In terms of video generation, there's Sora. Of course, we have also released HumanX, which can create expressive avatars of people. So I think there are many different models that have also come up over the last 6 months specifically, and that has significantly changed the landscape.
I'll probably talk about how the models are getting better, right? A year back, the open source model, one of the best variant was Llama 270 billion. After almost, I think, 6 to 8 months, the Llama 3 8 billion model became better than the previous largest open source model, right? And what has also become interesting in just few months, Gemma 27 billion model became better than the Llama 370 billion model, right? So what it's becoming interesting is the smaller models are getting smarter. So do we still need the bigger GPUs is going to be a much bigger question. On an overall, the GPU prices have been increasing exponentially, right? One of the primary reasons is also a huge interest in training foundational models. But there is also another angle to look at it is there are smaller GPUs which are getting better and not the cost of them is not growing that much, right? Nvidia probably tries to market, and all the cloud companies try to market H100s and A100s. But the secret is, let's say you pick up A100, which probably came in 22 or 21, early 21s. Any GPU that came probably launched after 22 would be at par with A100 because it's of the newer generation, just like your Llama models, and it will be probably at 1/3 price that what you would pay to 800. But most of the cloud guys will not tell you this, and most of NVIDIA also will not tell you this, right? And if you are getting into a research place where you really don't need a data center in, the cheapest way is to get a gaming card and do it. But the moment you try to put it in a data center, NVIDIA has laws that says that you're not supposed to use in a data center. There are a few cloud companies which sell it, but if you're into any enterprise thing, I would say just be careful. And there's also a change in the licensing model which we have been observing, right? On the GenAI space, most of the open source models were predominantly built using stable diffusion. That was one of the I think that was one of the or the only model which was available in the open source. There are a few Chinese models which are not very popular across the world. It's very specific to China. But what has happened even for the company that was powering these models is Stability.ai. They have been going into financial challenges, and the latest model was SD3, which is not open source anymore. Though they claim it's open source, they have become very restrictive. If you're a researcher, if you're enjoying what you're getting created, it's okay. But the moment you put into commercial purpose, the license restricts you a lot, right? So there's a lot of freedom for them to come behind you in case they want to. So what we see is there is again a new set of people who came out of Stability.ai, and there are a lot of companies that got built because of these open source models. Now they have some funds; they are putting in money back into this because they need to survive on the open source models, right? So they are trying to build, but that's a question whether they'll be able to build. Open source has a challenge; they cannot hide the data that they're training on, right? If Meta can do that, because none of the companies, the popular models have ever opened up saying that this is the data that we train on. It's still a secret because I think they don't want to get into legal issues. So with that legal issue in mind, with their open source models, purely open source where the data is also, can they build such models? There's a question mark. So I think the coming years will be way more different. Companies could be, because AI has become mainstream now, most of the heavily funded companies want to make a big buck out of it, and they will be probably trying to put more proprietary models in front of it. It'll be interesting space to see how things evolve. I think these are some of the things that I've been observing, and quantization is also another important thing, right? It's not just a 16-bit model that you need to run. The 4-bit quantization model or even 8-bit quantization model is giving you similar performance, 98% of the original model performance without a much loss in it. So basically you can reduce the cost without needing a fancy GPU. So a lot of advancements being done. There's some advancements being done, whether do you need a GPU, can you run things on CPU, but that's something still in a very early stages. We have to wait and see how that matures.
Let me talk about some of the important things happening in the kind of way people are using the LLMs, etc. Like for example, what is very interesting, of course, we will talked about is the GPT-4o or the any input, any output kind of a or a multimodal kind of models. I think personally, I feel these are going to be these ones are going to be very important for the kind of richness of use cases that get unlocked, and thereby pushing the commercialization of AI or LLMs or GenAI much more easier. I am also very passionate or interested about the interface of hardware and AI LLMs, where the use cases that this kind of intersection will unlock for businesses. Generally, it is said that in enterprises, you can, like, people are ready to buy those use cases which are very boring, tedious, repetitive, and this interface of hardware and LLM can actually sit very well in these areas, and there will be less resistance in terms of even from the company as well, or the people in the company also, to adopt these things. Another important area and good development that is happening is real-time personalization that the LLMs are trying to enable through various ways, some ways because of fine-tuning in very different manner, but mostly through RAGs. That there's a lot of good research happening in RAGs, different methods, very interesting research is being shared. So that's also very interesting. And overall, it's very normal that models will keep getting faster, cheaper, and more widely available, etc. But what will this lead to is, like, as we all understand, and we'll continue to see for like many years from now also, like you'll have lots of models for lots of use cases. So having the clarity to kind of pick what is important and how you very carefully camouflage them, and the work that is being done to support this is also going to be very important.
Awesome. I was sitting here thinking that this 6 months has probably been a very long 6 months in the AI space, because I know in Satvik keeps posting about newer models and newer frameworks. There's just a lot that's happened, right? In production, I'll tell you 3, 4 trends we've seen, which have been very interesting. One, RAG is definitely the 80% use case in production. So with enterprises, we can talk about agents, etc. It's upcoming, but RAG is something that almost 80% of our use cases are all RAG. So this could be context-based generation, could be context-based Q&A, but the RAG framework has obviously become very popular, right? Second, I would have assumed fine-tuning to be a lot more popular by now. It is experimentally very popular, but in production, we've not seen a lot of fine-tune use cases. Or people would have fine-tuned a model and keep testing the same one, but people continuously fine-tuning or building newer models, not happening so much. The third is, I think, the rise of open source as a fallback model. Why I say fallback is people will still pick OpenAI or Anthropic or some other model as their primary model. And for a smaller use case, which they were using a 3.5 turbo for, they might use an open source model. And because costs keep going down so much, like on hosted models, it's becoming very hard to justify building your own model. So again, that's another trend we're seeing in production where people prefer using something that's already available, so a pre-trained model. I think in terms of models, and if I talk about how my personal last 6 months have been in terms of usage and what do I use, I would say Copilot and Cursor I use quite a bit for a lot of my code generation. If you're not using AI to write code, please do. It is a very, very big productivity factor. Like you will get so much better. And I had said this in one other conversation before that people earlier used to say, oh, don't copy from Google, you'll not be a good programmer. Then we used to say, no, Stack Overflow is bad because you're just copy pasting and stuff doesn't work. And I think I'm hearing the same arguments again, which is, oh no, but AI will write bad code, you will never be able to. I think a good engineer can figure out good versus bad, but you can be happy to have a really good pair programmer with you. On the general chatbot side, I think I was a big ChatGPT fan. Like for a year, I would feel crippled without ChatGPT. But of late, I have shifted to Claude, and I would say almost 95% of all of my content, coding, strategy, image generation, not image, but image vision based use cases have all just moved to Claude. And I think Satvik's again written a lot of posts on where does Sonnet 3.5 shine, but my usage completely shifted to Claude. So I think these two tools in the last 6 months have become like real winners in at least my personal life.
I think we had a lot of insights from this, but I want to get more out of you guys. So starting now, I'll ask some questions regarding the predictions, right? We'll start from Ritvika. So how long till we have full-length movie, like how long till we have full-length movie using AI? So any predictions on that? Any insights on that?
I think short movies are already being produced in a lot of the areas, right? Um, so full-length movie, so see, like there are many areas to a movie creation. It's not only about the shooting, but also the content around the movie, the script, and then their action scenes, right? And then how can you, basically, how will you transition from one storyline to another within the movies, right? So I think full-length movie generation is not, it will happen, but yeah, whether it will actually replace or it will be a theater-based movie or where people will like, go and actually watch it or not is really a question as of now, and it will happen differently. But I don't see that happening at least for the next 3 years, right? 3 to 4 years. But things are moving at a super fast level. I do see the short movies definitely coming up where really good stories. If someone like, of course, we would have really good story writers, AI story writers as well, right? And then we are also doing video generation, and there are other people also doing different kinds of video generation. Then there are different kind of music generators out there, right? So with all of this, obviously it is possible, but the creative aspect I think is still something AI is not handling. AI is really solving the, like, creativity is still left with human beings, but like if you see all the posts on, for just simple example, right? So if you see all the posts that people do on LinkedIn or different kind of social media, a lot of people do directly use it, ChatGPT or Claude or other platforms, and you can really clearly distinguish between a human using their creativity to write it versus using any other tool to build it. So I do feel that movies are not movies just because of all the operations there, but also because of the creative aspect. So the creativity is something that is yet AI has not replicated as much as humans are capable of doing as of now. So short movies where maybe the script and the timing is limited, that is definitely possible in just a year or so. So yeah.
So going to Vishnu, the question is about, I think the question is about GPU literacy, right? So I wanted to ask some question around it. So let's say we take the best open source model, let's say Llama 370B. So can you give an insight on if I were to post the model myself? So what is the GPU costing? How many people can I serve? So can you educate people about GPUs by taking this?
Will it be cheaper than using fireworks?
Fireworks.
And when will it be cheap?
So I think Satvik kind of Satvik kind of cheated me. I was preparing in my mind for the answer for the previous question. Suddenly he changed the question. Okay. So what does it need to take a Llama 370 billion model, right? So I think we did it for one of our customer. It needed 4 A6000 or any GPU with more than 40 gigs of VRAM, right? But probably if you have a H100 or A180 GB, you need 2 GPUs with FP16 precision. Now the interesting question is how many it can serve. It depends on what software you put on top of it, right? Let's say, for example, you put VLLM. By at least to my knowledge, it does not have a queuing mechanism inbuilt. So you may have to use something like Hugging Face TGA. These are all built to work internally inside a company, not to be deployed directly and used. Will it be cheaper than Fireworks? If you're using it once in a while, deploying it on your own GPUs will never be cheaper than a hosted platform. But if you have a good amount of workload, it's always cheaper than a hosted platform. For example, we are looking, the example that the company you gave us, what was the name? Fireworks. I've not looked at Fireworks, but there's another company called Together.ai. We were looking at the price comparisons and how much do we rent it today. So A6000 we rent at around $0.69 an hour. Together.ai rents a A6000 for $2 an hour, right? So it's like 0.7 and $2. So do they add any extra value on top of it? Yes. You don't need to write code to bring this instance up and bring this instance down. That's something that they have taken care of, which we don't do it currently, but that's where we aspire to be. Maybe the next 2-3 months we do that. But we may also increase our price slightly, but maybe not to $2. So the short note, the answer is yes, you can deploy it for a cheaper price than any of the hosted platform like Hugging Face, AWS, GCP, on smaller cloud platforms like Jarvis Labs, or it's much cheaper to host it on your own GPUs. With only caveat is if you have enough workload. If you're building a company where you don't even know what is the kind of request that you get in a minute or in an hour, it's always good to go with a hosted platform. Start with something super simple, scale your business when you know that you're paying a big bomb to these guys, then try to bring it in house. That I would recommend as an entrepreneur rather than as a sales guy. I'm both of entrepreneur and a sales, so I have to keep a balance between it. Right? I hope I answered your question. So an hour will be like 4 GPUs, 4 into 70, it's like $2.8 an hour per hour. So the same thing, it's like it's a $3. The same thing in together.ai will be $12. If you want to host it on a RTX 6000, the higher the GPU, the price difference will be much more. Let's say, for example, we are launching H100s probably early next week or mid next week. The price that we have in our mind is somewhere around $5.13 an hour. Something like Together or Lightning.ai they sell it for $12 an hour, and it's you cannot take one GPU. It's mandatory that you only take 8 GPUs at a time, right? Hugging Face does it $10. So we're like 50% cheaper than, easily 50% cheaper than these guys. But again, are we suitable for all the users at this point of time? No. We're suitable for a customer who is using a lot of, needs a lot of this. Let's say you're already spending like $1,000, $2,000 on these platforms minimum. Then switching it to Java Labs makes a lot of sense at this point of time. But we are working on features that are pretty similar to Together.ai or these things. So that will allow you to run probably at $6 or $7. Maybe we'll have some margin because we are building the software part of it. It'll be definitely a lot cheaper.
So next I have a personal question to Sandeep. So before starting Buildfast today, I was a data engineer myself, and the caption in his website says making data engineers obsolete. While I am safe now that I've jumped the ship. So how long will data engineers, how long will they exist?
So essentially, the thing is that when you see what data engineer does, right? Right now, 70% of their time is being like invested in being able to write those very tedious data pipelines using Scala or Python, etc., which don't scale continuously. They need to update the kind of anytime the base API changes or changes happen, they need to manage a lot of these things. So in very short, basically 70% of the time they were writing those basic things which could have been done by someone else, or they should have actually moved on to something much more rewarding, that is basically being able to optimize the storage, like how you do the indexing, where you store it, how to balance the cost and the query speeds, etc. So this kind of things, right, which are basically the baseline infrastructure, we would say that in another 1 to 2 years this will go away for sure, because even if you see the job posts that are there for data engineers in the US, they have taken a 35% dip in the last six months and so on. That means now what are these people trying to, like, what is the thing in terms of what is the next pattern, right? Actually data engineers will become platform engineers who will then be able to look at the whole infrastructure of the whole engineering data infrastructure, not just the ingestion and the pipelines, but also making the data mart available for different use cases. So there'll be more use case and value driven, and they'll be able to themselves tell, okay, I am able to supply business with this kind of a data readiness, which is resulting in this kind of X amount of value, which they are not able to justify at all right now. Biggest frustration with many of these core engineering areas, they do tremendously excellent work, but very difficult to attach value. And that is where actually we are trying to say that we are actually talking about them turning from a caterpillar to a butterfly. But of course, it just starts with a very little bit flashy statement of making them obsolete, but actually we are transforming them into something much more powerful and multi-skilled.
Great. So next question is for Rohit. It's a bit of existential question for LLMs. So let me explain this. So there has been a trend that every LLM is either supporting vision or may some or the other modality. So if you can cover about how long till we go away with LLMs and only see MLMs, and what are the trends that you have seen in multimodal models so far?
Now, I think very soon, almost all large companies moving towards MLMs, moving towards action models. So I think that is almost inevitable that will happen. I think the discussion that's already started is how long before we have general intelligence. And I think that is the next sphere everybody is moving towards. And probably multimodal is a step towards that general intelligence. So I would, and again, I think I stay a little more optimistic than everybody else, but I have to be. But I think it's coming really fast. All new models, if you see, that were launched are all multimodal models by default. Everybody's only talking about them because, again, think, right? If the goal is Mars, you can build the best space rockets. So the goal is AGI, then you have to build everything in its path, and then it's just MLM is just a step in that journey.
Got it. So I think fair point to say, but can you cover some like what percentage of people are using MLMs right now compared to LLMs as you see?
Okay, so in production, I would say people still stay a little bit behind. So we did a So there was a lot of positive news around GPT-4o and even with Sonnet, right? And Portkey today we see almost, I think, 200 million API requests a month. Actually more. So about half a billion API requests a month is what is happening on our platform. We saw less than 5% of those requests have shifted to GPT-4o, which is actually surprising because we would have assumed everybody should just shift to GPT-4o if you're on 3.5 turbo or if you're on 4 turbo. It just makes sense to shift to 4o. But it doesn't happen because you have to still worry about pipelines. What happens if my prompt doesn't work? The risk in moving to a newer model is still very high. So people haven't moved to 4o. People having moved to vision models, still I think it's far away. On the other side, I would say in non-traditional AI use cases, right? Insurance companies, finance companies, marketing firms, they are using vision a lot more. Like I would be surprised the kind of stuff they're doing. So people, I was talking to one insurance company, whenever you upload a transaction completed screenshot, they can find data from it and then use it to process the invoice better. Now that is a perfect use case where earlier you would do OCR plus some CV plus some LLM. Now all of that combined into one vision model. So vision models are bringing in a completely new set of people coming in and a new set of use cases. But people upgrading, it's still a slow function. Yes.
Great. So I had a sequence of questions by that, but I thought I'll slightly divert from it and ask a question about what are the, like when Rohit was answering about talking about Claude. So I wanted to know what you guys use as main AI tools that you use in your daily life, and how is like if you can talk quickly about the AI tools that you generally use, that would. Anyone?
So I have subscriptions for almost all the platforms that I think I can have. Perplexity I use if I have to do some research work. Let's say, for example, I want to do a competitor analysis, right? I want to get the pricing of AWS, a particular GPU. It's very hard for you to go and search across. AWS does not make it easy to get the pricing. Put it in Perplexity, it goes and does all the work for me and gets the pricing. If I'm working for a presentation on a topic which is yet not mostly discussed about, then Perplexity does a good job. Claude has become like my de facto. The only reason probably I'll use ChatGPT nowadays is for creating images, which Claude does not do. And sometimes for coding, if I want to get a different opinion, sometimes Claude gets into, rarely, very rarely, it kind of there are certain niche areas where it does not answer. Basically, all of these things work. If you're talking about Python, it does really good. If you're talking about a specific file system, a specific issue, then all these hallucinate, right? So then we quickly switch to a different model and see if in case that knows a little bit more about it. Copilot again is one of the most commonly used. What else? It's not about the number of tools, I would say. I think the more difference that I'm doing is, though it launched, ChatGPT got launched like a year back, I did not take it seriously till there was a tweet from Andrej Karpathy, who was one of the founder of OpenAI and head of Tesla. Right? He said that his life has changed, and I started taking it seriously. And even after taking it seriously, I realized that for a lot of things, brain is still not tuned towards, or go and check with this particular GPT tool, right? We try to ask a friend or someone, but what I realized is if you forcefully train yourself, okay, anything you want, just ask it. Probably there's at least you have like a companion which is very smart than probably the average peer that you would get. That's the insight that I have got.
Maybe we can do a different question.
Yeah.
Right now. I just forgot to. I was thinking. Okay, so what is the single biggest thing that you are excited for in the next 6 months? In terms of AI, if anyone has an answer ready, what is the single biggest thing that you are excited about GenAI in the next 6 months?
So I would say that the way the voice models interact with the end user, right? That being very human like will be something which I'm personally looking forward, because that will really make a lot of this like sales, marketing, health, telecall, at least the first line activities of being having a this human interface. You try to replace with this IVR and other things, right? Or you kind of keep a baseline agent human agent sometimes to interact, that can be made more interesting and enjoyable, which I think still work is being done in that area. So I also feel that this can happen in the next 6 months. So I'm just looking forward to that very much.
Yeah, maybe one couple of things that I feel I'm super excited about. One, I think hallucinations as a concept almost becoming extinct. We've seen people figure out guardrails and a lot of other pieces which makes hallucinations back to the feature it was, not the bug. Second, I'm looking forward to orchestration quite a bit. So with agents and orchestration frameworks that are coming up, I feel we've only scraped the surface of what is possible with LLMs we have today. We feel that, oh, we need better models and this is not good enough. I feel these models, we've seen some use cases which are phenomenally good for even where we are today, but we don't have the right orchestration in place. I think that orchestration, solving that orchestration part out very well, those would be like two big things that I'm looking forward to.
So I'm very excited. I think there are a lot of AI agents coming up, right? But what I'm really excited about is having one-to-one real interaction with like an AI agent in a video call without that person even being there. For example, even in sales calls or even Zoom meetings or even like a lot of the lead qualification calls, right? Where you do not really have to sit in the call really, and you can still have all those interaction in this call, like your avatar can have it and it will really look like you are having your conversation. And the only thing that we have to figure out there is many things are figured out here. Of course, we are also building a part of it, which is the video. But one thing we have to figure out is how do we build the person's persona also into the whole thing, right? So that's why few of the calls which are already possible, which are a couple of use cases we are also working on, is lead qualification and few other calls where question and answers are almost predetermined, and you almost have like the answers, and then there can be a predetermined next question to it. But now the next step is where you can actually have a real conversation where the answers or the questions are not predetermined at all, and it will be very contextual, which will be defined in a meeting itself. So I think that will be very efficient use of time for a lot of the things. So, and I'm super excited for it.
I'll just add, I have two perspectives, different ones. One is efficiency and one is transparency. I'll pick up the transparency. When I started getting into AI probably 7, 8 years back, things were a lot transparent. What do I mean? New models come probably once in 3 months or once in 6 months, and all of these models are usually trained on the same data set. Predominantly it was ImageNet or some data sets for NLP use case. So there was a very clear understanding of what was the architectural improvements, or was there an improvement in the training pipeline or in the inference pipeline. It was very clear. I think, at least to my understanding, after OpenAI started hyping that AGI is coming and all these things, taking, at least from my point of view, it's very toxic that they picked up that particular line. People have stopped being transparent. So now, though there are like so many foundation, at least 10, 20 foundation models coming out, it's not very clear on what is the data that is being trained on. Is there innovation happening on the data layer? It's an unknown, untold secret that they are violating a lot on the data that can be used. That's one of the reasons no one talks about the data, right? Can there be an ImageNet kind of data set where people volunteer to say that this is a data set that you can use, and all the changes happens in the architectural level, so that the downstream can take and build more efficient models rather than we running behind the most popular open source or proprietary model in a very dark way. It was AI was a very healthy space a few years back. With new companies with heavy VC funding coming in, it has become probably a toxic place to be in. The second one is efficiency. Again, going back 2, 3 years back, most of the work was done in how can the model training be done on one single GPU. Academics used to work on how quickly the training can be done. Suddenly, it has become more towards who has got the biggest model, who has got the biggest metric. No one cares about is it usable for someone using a small GPU. This particular technology is very important. For example, I was talking to there's a thing going on called OCC, Open Cloud Compute. So one of the use cases that we were discussing was education, right? I really fond of education. I have a kid 8 years old, and I try to see how GPT can be used with him to help him learn, and he's also getting homeschooled. So if you look at traditional schooling or even the current day schooling, it is one teacher and you have like 30 or 60 students depending on the economics of the school. It's not very efficient, right? Because let's say you're doing your 7th standard, a teacher is teaching a particular math concept, you have missed one of your earlier classes in 5th standard, you find it very hard to understand this. And there is no way for the student to go and ask the teacher, can you explain this, or the teacher to also help this, right? I think with LLMs, we can rethink all these things. How can a student have an individual LLM and the learning happens through LLM? And the teacher, instead of doing a donkey work, I'm being very careful when I say donkey work. Just look at it from a teacher perspective. She or he has to do the same thing every year, every classroom, irrespective of whether the students are interested or not. Most of the classes, the students are not interested. Can LLMs be a part of it, and the teacher become a guidance? The teacher jobs become more creative, help the students more, which is very important in a country like India for us to go to the next level of economics, become more smarter, right? In order for this to happen, the efficiency has to improve. The GPUs need not run on a H100, which is like super expensive. It should run on probably the smallest GPU, because just imagine if you want to deploy LLMs for even 30 or 40% of the schools. Forget about the government schools for a minute, right? Even if it wants to be deployed to private schools, it's very expensive. Right? If we're doing these kind of things for the next level of innovation, has to be in the health sector, it has to be in the education sector, the efficiency has to improve. I think if there is more energy being spent, just like the earlier days, it'll be more cool than really focusing towards AGI, because I am not really excited about AGI. I think it's more of a distraction, making governments force come up with laws and all those things. We have like real problems, right? Even let's say we build something like Terminator, it's not going to solve the real problems that we have today. Like teaching our kids with love and what do they need, taking care of our roads, construction, they really need physical materials. So I think the direction goes more towards a healthy way in the coming years rather than in a very toxic way. That's my take on it.
So, talking about that point where we talk about road to AJ and many things before that. So, you have seen starting from 1 p.m. we have only been talking about good things about generative AI. But with the rise of this technology, there are a number of issues like starting from copyrights to misuse of technology to many other things. I think if panelists have any insights on concerns that they have about generative AI regulations or anything.
I just want to highlight or bring attention on fraud. I think fraud is going to get much more complex. It will also adopt the video audio format, and so that is where a lot of opportunity also is present, not just for the companies but also for startups as well. Another important and worrying concern will also be use of military applications of AI, and a lot of these companies in the form of drones or automated weapons and space grade weapons, etc. A lot of things are happening, and other important concerns that are not really apparent is also the privacy, the private data, or the human identified data, PII data. All these things also being stored very permanently, all these important events, like we all are sharing our social life, right? Imagine if some model is actually storing that, right? And it can be used against you anytime, for example, right? So there are these are not very easy to figure out right now, but there can be different ramifications of this going forward. This can be used for your visa screening application and so on in much more powerful manner, job interviews, all these things.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with a lot of those, right? The concern I have on a broader scale might also be about bias. These models are being trained on publicly available knowledge, and publicly available knowledge is biased. So how do you remove that bias? Because like 10 years later, the models have all the knowledge from today's internet, and today's internet might not be correct a lot of the times, or might not be unbiased as well. That will give rise to new data, because everybody is creating content using AI to some extent. which means that the bias will continue for generations. Nobody to correct it, because you can't really go back and tinker in a model. At least till now, it's not possible to go tinker a model and fix some biases. So I think that might continue longer. And I know this is something companies are paying a lot of attention to, but it's a very hard problem to solve.
I think yes, most of you have already like we are all almost I think telling the same thing. There are of course potential ways in which AI can be used in a harmful way, right? And really, like for example, all those frauds happening recently. I saw something. There has been some financial fraud happening with the commoner, where they called in the face of some police officer or something, right? These all things are happening, and there are many other, like this is like a real life application. Like the scammers are finding use cases faster than the startups really these days. So, but like all those things are happening, and there are many other ways in which AI can be misused. But if you see any kind of revolution that has come to the world, like even when internet has come, right, many people were concerned about the security issues, about the privacy issues, and that is true. That always comes with any kind of new revolution. So I do feel that there are immense potential to what we're creating right now, and of course there are safety issues also along with it. But with the mass adoption, with more and more people building on it, and also people building on the safety and ethics of it, right? A lot of these things concerns will go away with time. I'll give you like this is just as mindset is also shifting. A lot of these concerns will really go away because people will understand that even companies are adopting mass measures to make sure. For example, we have to do video KYC and everyone who creates the videos. I think all of like us are also concerned about the use of data in training all these LLM models and many other stuff, right? But all these things will go down with time is all my views are, and I think we need not of course, while we need to be aware of it, and as we are all building our own companies, we should make sure that in our company it should be like safely handled, and every measure is taken to make sure nothing happens on those level. And whoever is researching and developing on it, they should also make sure that they are also trained with the right data and whatever possible, right? But with time, like we need not get obsessed with it. With time, it will obviously go down, and it has happened with any revolution that has happened in the world so far. So.
So how do you tackle deepfake? Like not generations.
So we don't do deepfakes. So what we do is when any individual can come to a platform, give 5 minutes of their video data, and then clone their voice, their face, and their lips and their expressions, everything, right? From there on, to do their video, they just have to give a prompt, and the video can be generated, which will look like any other social media video, but that can only be done by that person itself. So there has to be a live KYC done by that person. And when we work with big companies, we have worked with almost every cricketer, actor that you can, like in India, right? And there has to be strict video KYCs from there, and legalities, all things have been figured out. So without anyone's consent, you cannot create their videos. In fact, like just because you brought that up, 1 year ago, right, many of the actors, even influencers, were concerned on this, and there were major strikes and riots, like not riots, sorry, strikes happening in even USA, right, where they said that okay, even our jobs were being replaced with all these videos um, coming in, and like all these voices coming in, right? Recently, I think even character.ai is kind of like building on different actors' voices, etc. And many other companies are doing so. So, but right now there's a major shift. Even the mindset of the content creators, actors are also changing. Right now they're seeing this as a way of ethically licensing out their face and voice so that people can create more content and they can have passive income through this. Right? So the concern that they will replace us has gone, and it has gone to more that is this ethical enough and is this safe enough? Yes, there are enough measures to it, and then automatically they are okay with it. Of course, there are many more government policies, guidelines yet to come. It's a new field, but all these things will come over the next couple of years, and I think it is gonna be a regulated industry soon, right? Like anything in generative AI for that matter. So yeah.
I'll just add a point on the bias. Recently, a few days back, right, I saw a post on LinkedIn. A person was giving an example how Meta was generating images on WhatsApp. He generated an image for literate, and illiterate people. So literate people, it gave examples of the Western world, and for illiterate, for it gave examples of some parts of India, Africa. Basically, it was all a dark skinned or wheat skinned. Uh, and the Meta was, this model is not open source, not sure where the data was trained on. So I got curious. I wanted to see how ChatGPT handles it, how the open source model handles it. I saw similar things with both of these models. Then I got curious and I said, how does Google search handle it? The truth was Google search also does the same thing. When you search for literate, it's mostly the Western world. When you search for illiterate, it's the wheat or dark skinned people in probably looks like more like Indian and African, right? So I don't think bias is something that's going to change uh, just by time. It's more of a cultural change. So at a place where we India are today, unless until we change a lot of things, we will not be able to create a lot of quality content on the internet, quality photos on the internet for these models to be trained. We can be fighting, but unless and until India, it all comes to economics, right? Facebook still makes a lot of money. Google makes more money outside India, though they have the largest population in India. It does not make money. The moment our per capita raises, Google, they make more money, then our voice becomes much more heard and things gets changed. So it's not very straightforward to focus on it right now. I would probably defer it and say build the know-how, build bigger products that compete with the Western world, or just similar way have more global products that are built from India. That's where I think we'll have a way to influence. Even in this entire talk, right, we have been talking about products which are rarely built in India, right? That's something which I'm not really happy about, right? Probably 10 years, can someone have a meetup in the US and talk about most of the products and they complain about that, hey, all of these products are built in India, not in the US. I think that's where we can talk about bias, which makes more sense at that point. That's my personal view.
So, one point that I wanted to add to the concern is that it's maybe a continuation of what Vishnu has said. So, I personally have been using LLMs, image models, voice models, have like for the as long as they have been there. So, I'll share my concern. So, my concern is too much centralization or monopolization of this technology. So we see that most of the models that you see on the leaderboard are either coming from US or China or some parts of Europe. So this might feel like a very small problem, but the ramifications of this is something that we will feel a lot within 5 years or 10 years. So I'll just give you one example, right? So few months back, I was trying to create this fun application where you could upload a picture of any image and it will give you a recipe of it. So it's a very simple app to build with any vision model. So I was trying the most popular open source vision model, which is Lava 34B, which is the most popular vision model. So I entered an image of sandwich, no problem, it gave a very detailed recipe. I entered an image of pasta, it gave a very good recipe. So when I uploaded an image of gulab jamun, it says, sorry, I can't recognize this, right? So the reason is that this model has been trained. It's not because they willfully omitted this, because as these models are being trained there, so the data sets are from there, similar with US. And this is going to be a very big problem, because earlier they used to say if you want to forget about something, or if you want to like forget about a group or class or maybe race, just erase it from the history. I think the new saying will be, if you want to erase a community or something, remove their data from training data, right? So if you, so that is what that is what is happening with India. So if you look at the diversity we have, so China broadly has one language, one culture, right? There might be more. US is broadly one language, one culture. Where you come to India and there are like 100 cultures or 200 things. So ideally we should be producing 200 times more training data, right? Ideally we should be training 200 times more models, but we are not even doing 1 by 200th of what we should be doing. So the ramifications of this will is something that we will see sooner or later. So that is why, like, it is very important for everyone to get educated about AI, contribute to Indian data sets, developing frameworks and models which are more focused to Indian culture or something. So with that point, as a like, maybe I'll go a last question from my end to the panel, and we can open this. So continuing with the same point, and generative AI is one such technology where it knows no bounds. Whether you are a developer, marketer, engineer, product manager, doesn't matter. It is something that everyone can use and leverage very easily. So if panel can shed light on how can someone, for someone who is just starting out today, they can be from different level. They can be a CXO level, they can be a beginner, they can be 10 years, 5 years experience. So where do you think that they should start learning and contributing? So if everyone can share some.
I can just start. So contributing, obviously, we know we need to put more gulab jamun pics on the internet. That's important. We all do that. Learning, I feel step one is maybe shed the bias of no, AI will make me dumber. I don't want to use it. It doesn't work. I think try. I have seen it across professions that it does matter. Like, I mean, data engineers are about to become obsolete, right? And yeah, so there is a conspiracy there as well. But I think generally every job that you do can be improved or can be done faster to some extent using AI. So that's the first place to start. Like if you've not tried out Perplexity, please do for research. If you don't have Claude on your mobile phones, please do. If you're not talking to GPT 4.0 enough, please do. I think those are all good starting points. And as you get into technology, I think Andrej Karpati has this 14-hour series. It's a must watch. If you want to get into technology, want to learn what this is about. And it's so nice that he keeps updating those videos. He'll cut out parts of it. He'll replace them with newer parts. So that's 14 hours well spent. I know it's 14 hours, but I binged it over a weekend, and I think it was the best use of my time to learn how does the internals of this work, and to make it seem a little less daunting. Today, an LLM feels like, oh, it's an LLM. What's a GPU, CUDA, and all of these big words. But he makes it simple, so you realize that okay, it's code that's running, and this is how neurons work and all of that. So I would say those are two takeaways from me. So, if you just search for Andrej Karpati, there's I think Zero to Hero. The series name is called Zero to Hero. Yeah, it's just a series of some 10 odd videos.
I'll probably have one last question for panelists.
I want to put a perspective of how to think about this generative AI, especially in terms of productivity. 10 years back, when laptop was there, right? People who had laptop and software that was built into or software that run on laptop, the kind of productivity gain it would give you vis-a-vis or compared to someone who didn't have. Something like that is what generative AI is right now. Don't try to use it to generate your first thought. You use your fundamentals of the knowledge, your subject, and the problem statement at hand, basic problem solving mechanisms, frameworks. Use that to arrive your first set of thoughts. Then use LLMs and all these generative AI things or co-pilots to refine them, question them, cross-question them. It's just as how you try to learn anything. So this is the way. Very important before you start learning is do a check, do a benchmark on where you are, what are the knowledge gaps, and use that to identify where you are shorting. If suppose some kind of math is missing, for example, try to bridge those basics. So do this thing. The problem with GenAI is it is a amalgamation of so many fields, right? It has mathematics, it has computer science, it has human behavior, psychology, other things. One very interesting thing conceptually that I felt was LLM is not like you write x plus y equal to, it's not a calculator. Using an LLM is not like how you give a standard input and gets you an output. It's like talking to a human. And just like the way, the better you know whom you're talking to and how well you can communicate with that person, knowing the way to talk to a LLM, getting the best out of the LLM is also an art, which at least for some time will remain, which is also called prompt engineering, etc. So understand how to write better prompts, be able to talk to other people, reading how other people are using it will also help you. So these are some of the starting points. Of course, you have courses from paid to free to international level courses that you can slowly start figuring out. Start small, but stay consistent. Again, very fundamental thing of learning. So just follow this. I would say these are very good steps.
Yeah, I'll just add 2 points. One is just like everyone said, use the best model available. It's like $20 to $25 per month. The second one is for a long time I did not invest time on learning about prompt engineering. I thought it was a marketing gimmick and people are like scamming it. In a way, it is true. It's not like everyone is offering a real content. 90% of them are scam. But then there was a book in O'Reilly. I don't remember the name of the book. I was surprised that O'Reilly published a book on prompt engineering. So I just read a chapter of it. If I've read the chapter, it was published probably in May or June of this year. But let's say if I've read it 6 months back, that one chapter on prompt engineering, I would have done some of the things that I was doing in Claude and ChatGPT much quicker. There are things I naturally learned, but that particular chapter will make it come to you if you have without spending that 6 months of time. That's the only just if you're not using it, use it. If you're using it and if you've not invested on prompt engineering, just pick some really good content and spend like an hour or two. It'll improve your efficiency. That's it.
I think, yeah, everyone said like, how can you increase your efficiency in like daily life using generative AI? Use the tools that suit you. Like some people have different use cases as well, so there might be different tools that is helping you than others. So right, but I will talk about a bit about if you want to build build in generative AI, right, for your own use case, just for your interest, or even if you want to build something and you are thinking that you want to build something in future, right, you can start really contributing to all this open source models, right? And it really helps because see, this field is evolving so fast right now. If you like from the point of view of even hiring, like when we are looking at it, right, not many people really know it to the depth, right? And there's really a shortage of um, talent out there who knows generative, I can't call it really generative AI because it's also a very big field, but yeah, like whatever model, if it's stable diffusion for in our case, right, knows it to the depth, right? So but that is gonna be a very important crucial um, skill set to learn, like whatever you're interested in, even if you want to build a company, if you want to join a company, even it's a startup or a big company, whatever it is, right, in the upcoming years. And it is probably one of the most cherished skill sets at right now, and it is gonna be the most valuable skill set in the next few months as well, right? So I think definitely start contributing to open source models. It helps you gain branding also. It really helps you gain branding if you're a developer. So
So I have an insight on how you can get started with generative AI. I think you can probably buy my course if the suggestions from the panelists seem daunting, and you can have a chat with me after this. So I think now we can open floor for questions from people. And Vishnu had a question for panelists. Skip it. You can still go. You can ask like this.
So I did not find it relevant, so let's skip it.
Okay, I think if anyone from the audience has any questions that you want to ask, feel free to stand up and ask. Yeah, there is someone.
There are two aspects to why you use GPU. One is for your training and one is for your inference. Why do you use a GPU is there are a lot of things that you need in a model that you have to do the same thing probably a million times. Say for example, you're trying to generate an image. You're doing the same matrix multiplication. There's 1028, 1028, that many of those times. The normal CPU is not really good. The normal CPU is doing one thing really great in one particular piece. So that is in training, can it be replaced? I think it's very hard. There are accelerators like AMD, Intel who are building hardware, which probably is good as NVIDIA, but the software layer is still not at par with NVIDIA. In terms of inference, that's where the game is changing. Where there are tools like Llama or Llama.cp Llama 5, there are a lot of new formats that are coming that can run on different kind of hardware. That would be good. Having your own data center, I should have been born to so there is a data. So we built our office is like this size in Coimbatore, very cheaper than here. We tried two companies in India back then who was ready to allow us to host our servers. One was Tata and NTT. Tata is not anymore. They charged like they gave us a quote for 1.5 lakhs per month server, which is not economical for a bootstrap company. So we went to the first principles and said, what do you need for running a data center? You need AC and power. So we put a generator, UPS, and AC, and we converted part of this room into a server. That's how we started. So we could not scale it that way as we got customers, we got SLAs. We moved to as the hype of this year also evolved. Right? Data centers were okay to allow us to put our servers for a cheaper price than what was it. It was not very cheaper, but it's definitely lower than what it was 3 years back. So now the data center we have taken a few racks from them. That's a confidential information. But we have partnered. So our goal is little, and again, it's the bootstrap. If I'm heavily funded, if you my computer business will be having thousands of GPUs, and this this is the balance. But through partners, we have recently started partnering with GPU companies across the globe, and through them we can like scale up. The Indian data center is still a small. You say that someone else knows start JavaScript domain today.
Give me your business plan. Any calls?
And give the customer list.
Very ignorant on what it takes to start JavaScript. That's the reason I started. After knowing the kind of problems I have to face, if today I have to do it, I'll never.
So
you need to have a good amount of money. You need to have a good amount of tenacity. Our team has to go run scans to build a generator on a rainy day, do a crazy amount of shit work, understand what is a generator, what is a load man, which we have never heard of these things working in a computer. Okay. Understand what is a server. We've never seen a server which can hold DB. How many of you have seen a server that can hold DB? Very few, like 2 or 3. So the problem is, okay, it's almost like 50 or 60 kgs. So when we ordered it, came from Taiwan. During COVID, we got it. That's the first time we opened and we saw. We are not sure how to put the GPUs in there. We end up and we got a rack from a Coimbatore place, and we were end up unscrewing it and screwing it to figure out how to put the server. The know-how of it is not that. Networking, everything. So we have been like what the consumers as a nation. Because very little. If you go to YouTube and search for a 10G network, you'll find Americans doing it 5, 6 years, 7 years back, easily 10 years back. But to get a 10G and 10G cable, it will take months. At least that was the case 3 years back. I'm not sure if that has changed now. Even the cable, the fiber cable that we use for 100G network is all. So it's a tough business to be in if you are if you don't have deep pockets. We entered into it without a lot of knowledge, but we got into it. Now we are figuring. The beauty of startup again is you start with some idea and then you figure out you get new insight. I think there's a room for a lot of companies like us to exist. I don't want one AWS CCP to become the biggest dynamo in the room. So I think if you want a plan of us, I'm happy to share.
So, yeah, given the time, we can probably take 2-3 more questions. So if you can just raise hands, we'll have 2-3 questions. Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
When we are seeing it, lot of jobs are getting affected, and again, now it's those now that also think that is consider advising the government that to have a universal basic income. It's getting affected. The people who are losing jobs. That is UK, and probably they may come up with some great rules or qualities. How do you see, in India, is it going to happen? Something happens, going to happen, or how do you see this UBA concept in universal basic income and that sort of?
So recently in the cabinet, the government proposed something called a robot tax. So actually, thing is that governments will take care of this in a largely through taxation and by a direct and benefit transfer, which can be also this thing, that universal basic income. One point to note is that many of the 90% of the jobs that have been lost right now are not because of AI. That is because of a correction in the economics in terms of companies have overhired talent and they're now trying to just use AI and I think as a scapegoat to kind of correct these kind of things, whether it is in terms of hikes or in terms of the talent pool available. But like I said, until multi-layered reasoning and all become a very common thing, you will not see many of these important or average to high cognitive jobs disappearing from the market. Maybe some kind of data entry or like someone who is just there to kind of feed things into a machine like a scanner or something. Those kind of jobs might be going off, but not these kind of things anytime soon. And personally, I feel there is a little bit kind of a near-term peak has reached, local peak has reached in terms of the smartness of the LLMs, and that is why a lot of investments are happening in terms of real-time supply of data, context, diversity of the data that needs to go into give. So a lot of other optimizations which are making me feel that there is a so it will take some time. Is my summary view.
You're talking about two things, right? One is universal income. I've been thinking about it for a while. The problem with universal income is even for the governments to pay money, the governments has to take taxes from the people, right? So I'm not sure how that will work. If there are very few countries, few companies which control the intelligence, it'll be interesting to see how it works. Or will it push us to a society where the true work is going to be meaningful, like food, agriculture, art, what humans used to do previously. Right? That's one thing. The second thing is, I forgot actually. So your question was towards.
But of jobs also.
Yeah, jobs. That's a very interesting thing. Right? I think it's already impacting the number of jobs that is getting created. For example, let me take my own startup. Today, so there are 4 people in the core part of the team. Apart from that, we have not hired even a single graduate. So all of them have just finished their 12th standard. They've spent 1 year with Freshworks Academy, and we have hired. The reason why it works successfully for us is we have like a personal assistant, ChatGPT or Claude, depending on their preference, given to each one of these, which would have not been possible 3 or 4 years back. If I have to do the same thing 3 or 4 years back, I need to have some experienced professionals managing them, helping with them with the technology. So that jobs are not getting created anymore. And a lot of content creation that I do, I used to ask for feedback from my core members in the first year. Now I don't ask them, I use Claude to do that. So that job is kind of getting removed. So there are existing jobs are getting replaced. Are new jobs getting created is an interesting question that we have to look at. The efficiency, let's say for example, you need 100 members to run a probably $100 million company. Now I think you can do that with 15 or 20 people. That's where I think we are getting headed towards. So it's a true problem. Unless until new jobs are getting created, we probably will be facing this problem. That's my point of view.
Okay, we'll take one more question.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing your experience. So basically, I actually fear that like recently I have seen like LinkedIn posts that lot of AI startups are like just wrapper over LLM models or AI, right? And nowadays, like we have seen like rise of GPT-4o and Sora. So all these, just an example. So unscript.ai, what does it, like text to video? Sora also does the same thing. So I just fear that if we do something of our own, which is like using their own models, and they come up with some better version of it already, then our startup is like killed, right? So just like wanting to know your experience and on thoughts on that, like because the big tech giants like Amazon Q and all these tools are getting produced, and they can do it for cheaper rates because a lot of users are there. So in that case, how shall someone like think about this aspect and tackle this?
I'll take a quick one, right? So, usually the word rapper triggers a lot of AI founders. So, but I'll tell you, right, examples, what I've heard from other people. Somebody called Postman an API wrapper. Is it that? Then, I mean, a lot of the SaaS companies, and I was at Freshworks. At Freshworks, we used to call ourselves a database wrapper. I mean, technically, what is there? It's a database, and I have some workflows on it. Technically, that's all there is. So I would say, so go build a good wrapper. Absolutely, you're going to make a lot of money, make a successful company. What is the moat? I think that is a good question to ask. What happens when OpenAI builds the same thing that I was trying to build? I think that is where you need to build product level moats or business level moats. So how you're selling the product, that has to be a moat. Or in your product, is there a specific depth that you want to bring? Saying if I'm, so I think what Unscript, and maybe she's a better person to answer, but maybe for her target audience, that product will work 10x better than Sora. Because I am now only focusing on that, while OpenAI is just trying to build a open text to video model. That's not the same as building a solving a use case or solving a problem statement. So I think solve a problem, build it really well, and don't worry about being called a rapper or anything. I think that's just, yeah. But I think, yeah, you guys should answer. I can give it.
Yeah, I think you answered it quite well. So this has been always a question for anyone, right? So what I believe is we also built our models, and by the way, our models like Sora, we also have other competitors, but of course Sora is very different from us because they're very abstract, generic videos. We create videos with exact human beings. So we are more on dubbing videos or create videos that like me or you as an actor in the video itself, right? So those are different kind of videos which Sora is not focusing on or doing at the moment. But yeah, this question is there in general, right? Whatever you're building, any big company can come and build it. So the technical mode that you have, generally, unless until you are building a big foundational company, like you're building a Mistral, which also came out of nowhere, right? But or companies like that. For most companies, the technical mode is either not there at all, or it is there to give them a go ahead for the first 6 months to a year. After that, in most companies, you have seen either the customer service becomes their mode, the distribution becomes their mode for that particular use case for their ICP, like for the customer that they are serving, right? So most companies have not really, like obviously, like have not really grown just because of it has obviously given them the initial time to grow and set up the other things, but distribution is actually a real mode. What service you're providing for your customers, what problem you're solving, all those things become your real mode later on in your journey. So
So one thing that I wanted to talk about rappers is also that. So earlier, maybe 1.5, 2 years back, building AI applications was very hard, right? So now, as of today, you can use a model as powerful as 3.5 Sonnet with an API, right? So just because things are getting easier doesn't mean that you cannot call yourself an AI startup or something like that. So as long as you are using the technology that is available to you and you're bringing real value to your customers, don't let anyone say that you are just.
and I like to add to that as well. I think the word real value is super important. As I started, and I also said that the world is also shifting to building like Sora should not be famous because it's cool, or even Unscript should not be famous because it's cool, or because they are like making data engineers obsolete, so it's cool or not maybe. But yeah, like it should not be famous because of that. It's just that what real value, what real use case you are using for. Are you solving the fundamental question to any startup or company for that matter is that are you solving like an okay problem for many people, or are you solving a very major problem of few people for a few people, and that few people like has a good enough like weight, like you have like that few population is actually significant enough for you to grow to $100 million company or whatever your aim is, right? So that's what makes sense, right? Like, so you have to find a real use case, I think. And with all this technical things being out there, if companies are building it, because it's better for us, because more companies can come out of it and actually build real world, real use applications on top of it.
I think we'll take one last question.
No,
I think, yeah, he wants to add something.
Yeah, just I want to add one insight. Did you guys notice that ChatGPT was down a month or 2 months back, right? So I read a news article which again triggered me to do some research. Do you guys can you guys guess like what would be the average utilization of ChatGPT in the most developed country among the youngsters? Huh? Youngsters. I mean, youngsters are the ones who get adopted to the technology quicker, right? I'm talking about youngsters 18 to 20 to 23. Right? So it's less than 30 percentage, right? We underestimate the size of the world. We think the room Bangalore, HSR, Koramangala is the population, right? So the reason I'm giving you this insight is in a most developed country, very rich, $20 is not a big deal for them. The utilization is so low. Just now, bring it to the customers of a company. Probably they would be in 40s, 50s management or decision makers. They may not know or they may not have the time to go and figure out how to, even if ChatGPT is able to do that, they may not be able to do that. That's one insight. Other insight that I want to share is there was a company called PDF.ai. When I saw that for the first time, I saw why would someone use this? Because I can just upload a PDF document to Claude. I'm not sure Claude had it, ChatGPT had it back. And then ask questions to it. This company was built by one person or two persons. It's a wrapper, the way you can call it. It ended up making more than $50,000-$60,000 per month. Do you understand the? It's so easy to just drag, drop, ask questions, but you can build a product around it, do a lot of customizations, but ChatGPT will not be really interested in doing it, and then you become. And the third thing is, it doesn't matter whether it's called a wrapper. Whatever you do, there'll be people telling something. A Tom Cruise movie dialogue, just do it.
But dependency a lot, right? That is down.
That's okay.
You can have another.
See, Google goes down. So one question that we asked is, what happens if Lab goes down? Right? I tell boss, we will go down for sure. No, I am not giving you false promises. When AWS goes down, GCP goes down, I'm pretty sure that we will go down. We have all the backup plans available, but that will be scenarios where we go down. If you really want such thing, you should have a disaster recovery. And if you're such a client, usually the banking there, we don't need you at this point of time. We are not too big to handle you at this point.
I think more than going down, maybe whatever is the issue, and that gets solved over time. Google Maps, all now we have local maps, and we have data centers, everybody's so the monopoly for these all the layers and all, so it gets solved over time.
So my take on this is that you should be very clear as to whether you're building something like a platform or an application. When you're building an application, just imagine this: you have different cars that you can drive, right? For everything, input is petrol, for example, right? But there are cars that petrol companies are not good at making car, right? Why is that? Similarly, LLMs like foundational models will keep supplying this petrol, electricity, foundational pieces of unit, right? But when you design an application, what goes into it is not just that. There's a lot more that goes into it. Now I'll take a very example from the database side. If you take a simple CSV file and you ask ChatGPT to start asking questions, it will try to figure out what is that column, what it might mean, and give you some analytics. Okay, but now imagine you are able to also feed that ChatGPT the definition of the table and definition of each column in the table and see how that comes. So it's not just data, but data married with semantic context. In the world of data, semantic layer and that semantic layer tied to business logic, that will give you the right kind of information and confidence that your metric is right. Even when you do drill down on that particular data or the top level aggregate metric, you will get much more deeper insights. So never will if suppose DataZip is building an AI analytics engineer or AI analytics chatbot copilot, we will focus on being able to translate the business logic onto the data set in real time and from across the companies at departments of the company also. For each company, each of our customer who has marketing, HR, finance, all these departments will be able to mirror the business logic married to the centralized data, which is just data points, and we will still use foundational models only to power it, maybe 2 3 fallbacks using port key, so that we are able to build an application that business user trusts us and is ready to pay for. So this is how you have to think, and not like people will call it different things like wrapper or whatever, but you should be like something of value that people are willing to pay. And business modes are again different. You can have different ways you can develop business modes. There's broadly 7 or 9 important business modes that every business will have. You can pick one like network effects, for example. But yeah, this is how I think about the whole.
Yeah, just a second. So, yeah, I think we are already 15 minutes into this, and you'll still find panelists for some time around, I'm guessing. So, I think I just want to conclude the panel discussion, and I think we'll be around for some time. So, I would like all the panelists, for making to the session in a very short notice, right? So, I thank everyone for coming here. So, thank you. So, and I would also want to thank Rapti and Nihal. We all coordinated in a very short time to actually make this happen. So, I think, yeah. And lastly, you should also thank Aditya, Sakshi, and Amar who are here, who also worked a lot on the back end to make this happen. So, yeah, I think with this thing we end the session. I think Rapti, you want to say something?
Do I need to use this?
I don't think.